Welcome into the Recruiting Hour on 93.7 The Ticket, where everything is continually being worked on as we try to navigate this new stream lifestyle. I am somewhat sideways, but I am still Mike Schaefer. That is Connor Happer. He appears to be sitting upright if you were following along.
I got a bad We'll get this whole thing figured out.
It's going to take some time. I love the still photo of you leaning in real close talking to the audience yesterday.
Had to really get up in there.
It made me think of the classic 1990s wrestling promos from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Mankind would lean his face real close to the camera and talk in his little voice and probably mention something about Mr. Sacco or whatever. So I enjoyed it when I saw that picture making the rounds yesterday. But yeah, people can check it out. Where can they find the stream? I should learn this.
They can find it on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch.
All right. So lots of options for people who want to see what we look like as we talk on this radio show.
Yes.
So that is what we've got going on. Real quickly, because I know we have Mike on the line, but I do want to get to the opening splash here. It'll only take a little bit. The opening splash brought to you by the Pawnee Plunge in Columbus. Now open for business. It is like 80-something degrees out there. The temperature is rising, which means you need to cool off. And what better place to do that than the premier water park in the state of Nebraska, the Pawnee Plunge in Columbus. Get there, enjoy it, have a good time. All right. Just wanted to mention real briefly, Nebraska. We've talked about this a little bit. Nebraska's camps, they will have 4 of them that are open to the public. If you would like to go to Friday Night Lights camp, that was in question until earlier this week. It is now going to be open to the public, and people will be able to do that. The 2 Friday Night Light camps are on June 4th, which is this upcoming Friday, and then again on June 18th. And you can attend those on June 19th, the Saturday from 11 until 2. Nebraska will be having its Adidas-run pipeline camp, in which coaches from across the country, different Adidas schools, will stop by. Les Miles was here just 2 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
He was here. I watched Bo Stevens, the kid that ended up in Iowa's class, excitedly tell his dad that Les Miles had just offered him a scholarship while at Memorial Stadium working out in the pipeline camp. So that's the kind of stuff that you can expect at these sort of events. But they are now available. There's also a 7-on-7 camp on June 13th, I believe, at let me look at a time here just to make sure that I have this right. The 7-on-7 camp, June 13th, the Sunday, starts at 9:30. Gates will open at 9. The Friday Night Light camps will go from 6 to 8. Gates open at 5 for people interested in attending those. Those again, June 4th and June 18th. And June 19th, Pipeline Camp gates will open at 10:30 for an 11 to 2 camp that day.
Gotcha.
So we'll dive into a little of that, but I wanted to mention that at the top. And then, of course, we have Mike on the lines here. Mike has promised us a potentially long question and discussion. So I'm really excited because he's tweeted at me a couple times. He was worried. He didn't want it to take up too much time. So
we're wide open.
He has my interest. He has my curiosity, and now he has the floor. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mike. The reason I like to do these questions, because you guys give a lot of insight into these different individuals, so it may seem a little bit hokey, but I always enjoy your thoughts on this. So I got 5 position group coaches, and I was just wondering if you guys are named the head coach, who would you take for your assistant coach at each one of these 5 groups? I don't know if you want to write them down and whatever you have time for. If you're hiring a defensive coordinator out of these 3, who would you take? Eric Chenander, Mark Banker, or Carl/Bo Pelini? Wide receiver coach, would you take Rich Fisher, Keith Williams, or Matt Lubick? For your offensive line coach, would you take Greg Austin, John Garrison, or Mike Cavanaugh? At DB, Travis Fisher, Terry Joseph, or Brian Stewart. And linebacker, Barrett Rude, Ross Ells, or Trent Bray? Thanks a lot. Look forward to your answer. You guys have a good one. I'm going to remote from Pawnee Plunge.
We want to do that. We absolutely want to do that. But
see you guys in Speedos or something with the webcam.
I'm not sure we want to do that.
Well, we got the technology.
It's a possibility. Mike, before you go, I would actually like to answer what you would do. I want to spin it back to you for a little bit because you posed a question, and Happer and I will dive into this because I'm really curious where he's going to go with some of these. But I'm just curious for you as a fan, who are the coaches that you would select for those 5 groups?
Well, I don't have your expertise, but I appreciate that. Probably Eric Shenander, but it's probably not fair. He's kind of on the come right now. Probably Keith Williams. The offensive line coach is a tough one, but probably Greg Austin. Travis Fisher, to me, I think Terry Josephs gets more of the pub, but I think probably Travis Fisher and boy, I don't know enough, and I don't know the recruiting component like you guys do, which is part of the job. Barrett Root or Trent Bray, I don't know. It'll probably be a toss-up.
Okay. All right.
So you probably don't agree with any of mine, but that's great. That's why I asked.
We'll see. Okay, fair enough, Mike.
There could be some crossover there.
Thanks, Mike. We appreciate that. We'll answer.
These are definitely some interesting groups here because you sort of have. I mean, you have the last 3 staffs. You have sort of a different representation across each of those as we walk through it. So how do we want to do this, Happer? Do you want to go?
We can start at the top.
Just right at the top with defensive coordinator, and then work our way down.
Yeah.
All right. I'll start with this one. This is among the more difficult for me because I actually think Mark Banker's...
This is the most difficult for me.
I think Mark Banker's very good. I think that he got a raw deal. I think he was basically pushed out because people in the program wanted Bob Diaco because he was a big name. Mm-hmm. And Nebraska's defense played pretty well in 2016. You get to the end of that season after the Wisconsin game, and it gets really ugly with what happened at Ohio State, Iowa, and then Tennessee in the bowl game. But I think Mark Banker had things in the right direction. I really liked him just in general of what he wanted to do and sort of his vision for this place. He loved Nebraska in the short time that he was here. But I also think that as Mike said, the tide had really turned with how people are viewing Eric Shenander. He's someone that I've always kind of felt like everyone initially in 2018 wanted a whipping boy. And he inherited an absolute mess for a defense that was not ready to be in a 3-4. And they played it in 2017, shift a little bit with the same front, but what you're trying to do is a little bit different, and you don't have that personnel built up yet. And they've steadily made improvements.
To be completely honest with you, if we're just doing Banker and Shenander, I think they're following about the exact same path at Nebraska. I think
that's kind of why with Shenander, obviously this seems...
People wanted to fire Banker 2 games in. Yeah. 2 games in. And the same thing with Shenander.
I remember responding to tweets at the end of 2018 in the Iowa game with people that are like, I like where this team is headed, but they got to fire Shenander. Right. And it's like, no.
They'll never get to the next level if they don't let go of Shenander.
The thing that I never quite understood, and it's laughable now of how it has played out with Nebraska, is... there was this commentary that Scott needs time to build his offense up.
Right.
But Eric Shenander should have had a top 20 defense in his first year, second year, third year,
There is no hope for him. No hope.
Right. And yet,
salt the soil.
Here we are where if that defense hadn't made the move that it did last year, Nebraska probably goes 1-7.
Yeah.
And then who knows where they would be this year because that offense has a lot of question marks.
That's a great point, Schaefer. That's an interesting way to think about that. If let's say they follow the Sean Eichhorst, Mike Riley path, and then Bill Moose comes down from his office after year 2 and is like, here's the deal. You got to fire Eric Shenander, and you got to hire this hotshot defense. You got to hire Bo Pelini. You got to hire a hotshot defensive coordinator. No. They probably don't win a single game,
Or it's like you got to go hire Alex Grinch or whatever.
And then they're all
who's
fired.
very good, but you don't know what it's going to do to what you're trying to build.
And then everyone's fired after they lose to Northern Illinois or whatever the equivalent of that would have been last year.
To answer the question, I would take Shenander barely over Banker because I think Shenander is a bigger piece of Nebraska's recruiting.
Where does Bo and Carl go?
It's hard to figure out how to separate that.
Because first blush, it was Bo for me.
Yeah,
but I think all have arguments here.
I think this is the most balanced across, like in terms of I could understand.
I can win games with any of those three defensive coordinators.
Right. I think you have a larger disparity in a couple of these other position rooms that we're going to go to. But like I said, it just throwing in the recruiting element and sort of what he has clearly meant to the players over there. And not that they didn't love Pelini or, Mark Banker, but I would just slightly give an edge to Eric Shenander, and that's how I would probably answer that one.
I would have liked to see Banker in a more competent organization, a more competent program guy, with him making hires that he would have wanted to make and running the defense the way he wanted to kind of do it. I would have liked to see that, but I guess just based off of the success. Now they had players too. I would take Bo.
Yeah,
but that's not fair because it wasn't fully him.
Right, and it wasn't.
And Carl's track record wasn't necessarily like the best in the world after he left.
Well, it's hard because we have the Pellinis here, but like Papuchas was a defensive coordinator most recently.
Yeah, if you throw Papuchas in there, I don't think he's anywhere close to either of them.
Right.
To Banker or Shenander.
And then with Bo, like he was the head coach, and so it's like, are we talking about his 2003 stint? Because Nebraska was pretty good defensively.
I still think Bo's a good defensive coordinator, even though the disaster at LSU last year. I still think he's capable of doing that, but it's hard. It's harder now. Yeah.
I am not so sure that I think he has adapted to where college football has gone. And
which is interesting because he was so it was so I don't know if I agree with you, Schaefer, because like the stuff that they did with athletes on that defense in 08 and 09.
Well, it seemed innovative, right?
It was innovative because they were playing in that league, and then they moved to the Big Ten where it was just a culture shock and it was really slow, and they needed to get guys and then the running backs beat them to the edge a lot of the times too. I think Levante David covered up a lot.
Yeah, I think that, in some ways, and this is true of any good coach, like you can always kind of point to the outlier players and be like, well, that kind of saved you in some regards. Yeah. My thing with Pelini is at the very end of his tenure, he was completely unwilling to change his too high safety look to put more people in the box.
Yeah.
He, everything felt like it was, we're going to either win this way or we're not going to win. And it just felt like the blueprint was there for how you were going to approach it.
That's interesting you say that, because I think there could be like a whole bunch of different categories here. And if one of the categories, if we're rating them 1 to 10 or, these guys in order on adaptability.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you were going, okay, you already have your team and you need one guy to build a game plan for one game, it probably would be Bo.
Yeah,
because and this is going to sound
gotta be
weird.
It's got to be the right team.
Well, and he has to have a certain amount of pieces to run what he wants to do on defense. But some of it is like what you get matched up with. Like he fit well against the Big 12 because he quickly diagnosed how he could get an extra linebacker out of the box, put another defensive back in there, and cause matchup issues for teams. Match speed with speed against some of these spread offenses.
Who do you think? Now, here's another one of the categories. Who do you think guys would? There's the old coach phrase like they run through a wall for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think they would play the hardest for?
Shenander.
I think I agree with that.
I think Shenander has
although Banker has an argument there.
I think so that's the thing with defensive coordinators in general seem to be among the most popular players in a football program. And that has been true for me in or popular coaches. That's been true for me with almost every regime.
I remember Banker, man. That dude cared a lot. He came down after that. I guess it was the Michigan State game in 15 when they won, and he was crying. He was like beside himself. And it was like, I'm so happy that they did that, and they got the job done and all that stuff. And I think it was the same thing after the Iowa game.
I don't know if Carl resonated as much with the Nebraska team as like John Papuchis was pretty popular. Bo, when he was a defensive coordinator, was pretty popular, and then as a head coach, was popular amongst that team.
Wow, that's a very tough one.
I think it's the most balanced across the three regimes.
Yeah, so maybe if we've gone through enough categories, there's a lot more that goes into it, but maybe it's recency bias, but I do think maybe Shenander has the edge.
Yeah. All right.
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver is interesting because you have Rich Fisher, you have I'm blanking on the name. Keith Williams. I was like, I know it starts with a K, and I almost said Ken. It's like, it's not Ken.
It's not Ken.
There's no Ken Williams. And then Matt Lubick. Conspicuous in his absence is Troy Walters, or Gilmore.
Yeah.
So there's that. So this is tough because all of these guys have different question marks with them. Like Rich Fisher.
I think it's Keith Williams.
Rich Fisher.
Out of those three, I think it's a slam dunk Keith Williams.
I mean, Rich Fisher presided over a nice run of players that Nebraska kind of had coming up during that time of where, you have Brandon Riley, you have Jordan Westerkamp, you have Alonzo Moore. They were all recruited under that Pelini run. Those guys busted out with Keith Williams. And I think from just which wide receivers were the most technically refined and able to outperform the defense, it's Keith Williams by a large degree.
Yeah, so I like what you
it's
it depends on how you're building it.
Right. And so both Williams and I know this because I talked with each of them. I followed their recruit, like who and what they were recruiting. Both of them generally felt like they were in a better position more often than not to land these wide receivers and usually didn't come away with them.
Mm-hmm.
Lubick, I have not been able to follow his recruitment near as much because obviously we've been in a pandemic for most of his tenure at Nebraska. He got hired in February of 2020, and the pandemic basically dead period starts in March. And so I'm very curious with the recruiting aspect what happens with Lubick. Lubick has a chance, I think, to put himself closer to Keith Williams if this wide receiver group that people like right now, they go out and they perform well in the 2021 season. Lubick has had by far the best career out of these guys. Think about it. It's not close.
Yeah.
I mean, Keith Williams is really popular around here, and then whether he chose not to work or was just waiting for the right opportunity, he hasn't coached since his last year with Nebraska in 2017.
He's with the Ravens.
He's now with the Ravens, and he's done the training thing. I mean, it speaks volumes about him. You have NFL receivers come to Lincoln to work out with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just saying, like, Matt Lubick's career, like, he's been to a bunch of Power 5 schools. He has been an offensive coordinator. Like, he's had a different career than Rich Fisher was at high school, came to Nebraska, went back to a high school. I mean, so he's had the least kind of run in terms of, so I think for me it would go Williams, Lubick, Fisher.
I agree, but a pretty big gap after Keith Williams, I think. That's just how I view it. Now you could also talk about what they had, and Keith Williams had, he helped Brandon Riley get to where he was.
He helped develop all. So whether
he recruited Stanley Morgan,
Alonzo Moore, Jordan Westerkamp. Stanley Morgan was committed before Keith Williams was there. He kept him as part of that class, but he helped get Stanley Morgan to the point where he's the best wide receiver statistically that Nebraska has had. Mm-hmm. He basically coached. Mike Riley was the one who found and stumped for J.D. Spielman, but he basically coached J.D. Spielman and was involved there. So
J.D. was interesting. He was a running back.
None of these guys can I say like they went out and they procured the talent. And so that's why Nebraska's run of like Williams, sort of being the guy for Westerkamp and Moore and Riley, and you had Lane Hovey was popping in with catches, and you just had some different people. And they just, they were a better unit during that time. So I'd have to put Williams one. We'll do offensive line here. Another one that
this
I
one's
think
slam dunk.
Could be, interesting.
I don't think it's interesting.
Well, I think it's Greg Austin is one.
I think it's Greg Austin by 42 miles.
But I like John Garrison quite a bit. And Nebraska's offensive line, when John Garrison was there, a lot of those guys went to the NFL. John Garrison and Barney Cotton, they got beat up a lot from people because the expectation was this offensive line should be even better than it was. And yet, how many of those people went on to play in the NFL and start like it? So it's a really good run. I think Greg Austin is the best coaches on Nebraska's staff. So that is why he would be my answer there. But John Garrison's better than people remember. Barney Cotton was better than people remember. Mike Cavanaugh was Mike Cavanaugh. He helped get Brandon Hymas. He had some struggles with figuring out where he wanted to line up some of these guys, and they continually seem to run into an issue where they recruited interior offensive linemen and then asked them to be tackles, and in the Big Ten it did not work particularly well in that regard. But he would be 3 for me out of that group. But I liked Mike Cavanaugh, but it just feels like comparatively when you have Greg Austin and John Garrison, both alums at Nebraska, both guys who know football very well. Not that Mike Cavanaugh didn't. It's just those two and their success stand out more.
I would agree, and then even more than that, I would say Austin. Quite a bit more.
I think Greg Austin is a key component of Nebraska's. Like, if they're successful, it's because the offensive line has, made a push forward, and then they can run their offense along with it.
Ubaldo said Mike Cavanaugh for his sick burnout after Riley got fired in the parking lot. That was a good one.
Let's finish these up, and then we're gonna have Parker Gabriel gonna join us. We'll dive into the visit weekend, what Nebraska has coming up, who they have coming in, his thoughts on MJ Morris, a little bit of news there, and so we'll do that in a little bit. But I do want to finish up with Mike's question here. Defensive back, you have, for me, Travis Fisher, and then you could pick either one of the other two. Terry Joseph wasn't here that long. Brian Stewart wasn't here that long. I mean, Travis Fisher has coached longer than either of those two guys, I think, in his 3 seasons.
So was Stewart 1 year or 2 years?
Brian Stewart was 2 years in Nebraska.
And then Dante was the other one.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So Brian Stewart,
because he left.
He was initially He was initially the defensive backs coach, and then I think he became the safeties coach, and then he left. And Dante Williams had come in to be the cornerbacks coach at some point. And
Banker took over safeties or something like that.
Yeah, it is kind of a mess.
He left to go be like the defensive coordinator at Rice.
Yeah, so he was at Nebraska in 2015 and 2016. So for me, it's Travis Fisher, and then a pretty large gap. And then Terry Joseph is a very good recruiter, but he was only at Nebraska for maybe a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then you have Brian Stewart.
So there's been a lot of defensive backs coaches over the years.
They have. They definitely have.
Who was the one who was the in between? The guy Charlton Warren. Yeah, right before the Riley staff took over.
Yep. And then linebackers is Barrett Ruud, Trent Bray, Ross Ells. I think this one's kind of hard for me as well because I don't know that any.
I actually think it's easy.
Yeah, I don't know that I think any of them are completely standouts, and all of them did different things.
I would say that Trent Bray is the clear number one here.
Okay. I'm not.
I'm
not sure. I
was pretty convinced that Trent Bray was going to be a good coach. And he's the defensive coordinator at San Jose now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was pretty convinced that he was working. When he was here. And I think Rude's good too, but he's younger. Bray's young too, but he's a little bit younger, just kind of starting off in his career. There's the recruiting thing too, which is, interesting as far as how we talk about prospects in the area. I'm not saying that Rude's bad. I just think Bray has more to show at this point.
Yeah, I think they all sort of had their pluses and they all kind of had their own sort of inconsistencies too. I mean, the linebacker room under Bray, some of those guys they brought in, even if they had stayed, I don't know that Willie Hampton, Greg Simmons, some of those guys would have been much there. So it's it's hard because it didn't
Those are
feel like
running
he got
Avery
enough
Roberts.
time. Yeah. And Avery Roberts, I think, I still wonder why Nebraska showed him the door the way that they did in the spring of 2018. But
Well, I think he needed
he probably needed a fresh start.
Yeah.
But he's a good player.
Yeah,
He's a good player.
clearly he's
Um,
had a good career at Oregon State.
That is one of those Super Sixes I count as a hit just from the prediction aspect of this guy's going to be good, even if it didn't happen at Nebraska. And then Ross Ellis did a lot. I think he unfairly took blame for things because he was named as the special teams coordinator, even though like he only worked with one aspect of it, but he basically got blamed for all of Nebraska's issues with the special teams until, Bo and Jeff Jamrog became more involved with it. And then Ross Ellis was big with getting the Big Red. Like he was a forward-thinking recruiting guy, and his linebackers weren't bad. They just weren't as good as Levante David. Is basically what it came down to. They were productive during that run of that'd be 2011 through 2014. Mm-hmm. And so it just I feel like he kind of gets maligned, but that's a guy that's had some pretty good Power 5 jobs after.
I think they've had good linebackers coaches.
Yeah,
for sure.
So great question from Mike. That was fun to kind of roll through.
Can I tell you? So as Mike was asking his question, I wrote it down just to make sure I wrote it in my notes app on my computer. Here is the next thing on this, and I just use this basically as scratch paper. It's just around. The next thing that came up on my notes is competitive eaters and street basketball players occupy the same space in my brain. That was a note that I wrote down one time.
Okay.
Also, the next note says iPhone audio adapter, cooler, other pants.
Making a list of things back.
I guess I was blacking going somewhere.
Other pants.
I also have my oddly specific predictions from the Hypecast.
Nice.
Right before the Ohio State game this year.
I mean, one came very close to happening.
The mispronouncing of
Gus
Vokalek.
Johnson, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It says Will mispronounced Vokalek. And he said Vokalek.
I should, I don't know why I'm saying this on air, but I should pitch to Brunson, BC to do a Hypecast for the regional on Friday.
Yeah, let's go.
First one in a while. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll have Parker Gabriel on from the Journal-Star. We'll get into some Nebraska visitors coming up this weekend. We'll see what he's thinking there. MJ Morris, all that more with Nebraska Recruit.
You're listening to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Mike Schaefer here with five-star child care provider Lee Beecher from Bubbles and Blocks. Let's start with what makes Bubbles and Blocks special.
We have 3 beautiful locations in Lincoln that provide the safety, security, and reliability you need while also bringing a family feel to each classroom at every location.
I also hear some congratulations are in order.
Thank you. Yes, we just won the Lincoln Choice Award for Best Daycare and Preschool for the 3rd year in a row.
What should people do if they want to join the Bubbles and Blocks family?
Call to set up a tour to enroll your child today, or you can visit bubblesandblocks.com to apply to join our team.
Welcome to Friendly Neighbors. Welcome to Maintenance-Free Living. Welcome to Carriage Glen. Welcome home. It's everything you'd want in an active 55-plus rental community right here in Lincoln. Spacious floor plans, numerous amenities, beautiful surroundings near Holmes Lake, and much more. Plus, with Carriage Glen's current move-in special, you can save thousands if you act now. Carriage Glen invites you to take a personal tour or visit them online at carriageglenoflincoln.com. Discover the place you'll love to call home.
Here's to days spent roaming and to sleeping beneath the stars, to casting another line and letting time float by. From Shadron State Park to Indian Cave State Park and every recreation area, historical and state park in between. Here's to your adventures, your memories. Here's to 100 years of your Nebraska State Parks. Plan your next trip today at NebraskaParks100.org. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
The Mercado by Certified Piedmontese Beef is Lincoln's newest full-service butcher shop, offering premium fresh-cut steaks and house-made sausages daily from 10 to 7. They exclusively carry certified Piedmontese beef raised right here in Nebraska. When shopping at the Mercado, you're not only supporting local, but also enjoying the official beef of Nebraska athletics. With prime-grade tenderness and unparalleled nutritionals, your backyard barbecue is about to get a serious upgrade. Stop into the Mercado today, located off 84th and Havelock in Lincoln.
Summertime is here and the temperature is rising. Beat the heat at the Pawnee Plunge Water Park in Columbus all summer long. Pawnee Plunge features a full day of fun for the whole family, including the flow ride, the only one in Nebraska, a large swimming pool, diving boards, a lazy river, climbing wall, and of course, massive water slides. It's a great place for parties or a great spot to lounge around all day long. Book your party by calling 402-562-4269. Come splash and play the Pawnee Plunge Way in Columbus from May 31st through August 8th.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Brought to you by Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing.
Expect partly to mostly sunny skies and beautiful conditions here for our Wednesday. We'll top out near 80 with a light south wind at 10. Mainly clear tonight, a low dropping down to around 56. Getting a little warm for our Thursday with a high of around 86. By Friday, we could be approaching 90. That's a check of your forecast. I'm meteorologist Tim Rupp for 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
At Gaina Trucking, you can make a better income, a better career, and a better life. Gaina Trucking Excavating is now hiring Class A and B CDL drivers. Careers include amazing benefits with a 401k, healthcare, paid vacations, annual raises, and so much more. 40-hour work weeks guaranteed year-round. To be a part of this amazing career opportunity, apply online at GainaTrucking.com. Don't miss our team culture, benefits, and a career that will give you a better life. Be better at Gaina Trucking and Excavating.
Back to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer. Presented by Bubbles and Blocks. On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Hour. Here, Mike Schaefer, Connor Happer, who is rocking some shades now.
Yeah, Nick left him.
Nick left his shades. Happer has claimed them. They are now his shades. And I have no idea if Parker Gabriel is wearing shades, but maybe. Parker, or do you have sunglasses on?
No, I only wear sunglasses at night.
Nice.
Understandable.
What was that? What was the guy who sang that? Cody Hart? Is that the guy who sang that song?
I don't know. That was a really stupid joke. I shouldn't have even said that.
It's the guy. It's the same guy, same name, not the same guy. Same.
It's Corey Hart.
Corey Hart, the guy who played for the Brewers for all those years.
Yeah, same name as the lanky Brewers outfielder.
Exactly.
Hart, yeah.
Not Richie Sexton, though.
Where does he
Not
rank?
Richie Sexton.
Where does Corey Hart rank in terms of your favorite random Brewers?
He's pretty high up there. He was in a good era of random Brewers, along with he played with J.J. Hardy and Ricky Weeks. Yeah, those are a couple good ones. But the guy who came to mind as a random Brewer, I'm glad you asked about this.
Of course.
The other day, because I realized that I think he was second for Rookie of the Year, and then one year he stole 70 bases with the Chicago White Sox with Scott Pacetnik.
Yeah. Former Royal as well.
Former Royal as well, yeah. Yeah, Scotty Pacetnik was the leadoff hitter, and he was like 390 on base percentage, and he was like right up there for Rookie of the Year, and then that was pretty much the high point, but he had a nice career.
Yeah, this guy definitely qualifies as random. It's more like late 90s, early 2000s, but Jeremy Burnett, who the Indians actually traded to the Brewers, and then he went on to just kind of have a nice sort of a nice run of things.
There were some great 2000s, like around 2000s Brewers.
Yeah,
when I first
started
going to Brewer games, it was like Jeremy Burnett and Jeff Jenkins.
Yes.
I think Dave Nilsson was still the catcher. And then you went through then there was the era where it was like Fernando Vina and man, they had a bunch of them. One year they traded the Diamondbacks for Junior Spivey.
Oh man, that's great.
Junior Spivey had been an all-star, and then he definitely was not in Milwaukee. Royce Clayton was in there. There's a lot of good random Brewers.
Well, you had you had the guy from Mr. 3000, Bernie Mac, who was a Milwaukee Brewer and a Hall of Famer, but ultimately, spoiler alert, did not get his 3000th hit.
Yeah, that's why they call him Mr. 3000.
I don't have to watch it.
That's a good movie. I
don't have to watch the movie now.
The thing about that movie is they made the baseball, like they shot it at Miller Park, back in the glory days when it was actually known as Miller Park Parker, and like they made it look real. I enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw it, but I remember when they were filming it at Miller Park.
Sad.
American Family Field.
Yeah, not American.
Did you ever go to Old County?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the first games I went to were at least a few years, like mid-90s probably was the first time I would have gone to a baseball game. So yeah, Old County Stadium. It was pretty cool because instead of having the slide, well, they had the slide, but like instead of from like a nice chalet just down to the bottom, like Bernie literally slid into a giant mug of beer.
Wow,
those were really the days.
Yeah.
So I went to Old County one time, and it was during the '98 home run chase, and we watched the Brewers and the Cardinals play. And Mark McGwire flew out to the warning track, and the noise of that, like everyone was Brewers fan, Cardinals fan, random Schaefer family from Nebraska. Everyone wanted that ball to go like an additional 5 feet so they could talk about how they saw a home run in '98 during the McGwire chase. So.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry that the cavernous county stadium took that away from you.
It needed to be changed out. It was pretty old and pretty.
Miller Park is beautiful.
I have not been to Miller Park. That is, I've only been to Old County for Milwaukee baseball.
Great place.
Yeah, we need to get you to Miller Park. It's a good spot to see a game.
All right. Well, let's dig into some of this recruiting news here. Nebraska's going to have 8 visitors for the upcoming weekend. This list has changed a number of times. Like when we talked about it last month, we were talking about, they're going to have Jaron Kanik. And then, 2 months before that, they're going to have Popeye Williams. So this iteration of the list has changed several times, but they appear to have the 8 names, the 8 guys that are going to be there this weekend. Who amongst that group, and we'll run through all the names, but I'll let you just kind of highlight who amongst that group stands out to you as kind of maybe the key target of the weekend? Is there one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of people start with the quarterback, Richard Torres, and rightfully so. Nebraska is still looking for a quarterback in its class. MJ Morris is going to commit somewhere tomorrow. He's got Nebraska listed as one of his 3 favorites, so that's a domino that'll fall. If MJ Morris doesn't pick Nebraska, which I think we sort of at this point think that's how it'll go, then you're probably looking at, Torres is the first guy to visit officially. So he's one. I think you probably know this. I really like Landon Sampson, the wide receiver from Texas. It's an interesting, with him and Torres both coming up, there's an interesting Texas flavor to the weekend, I guess you could say. And then I think we've talked about this on the show before, not to go just with the obvious offensive skill position players too much, but Justin Williams is interesting to me because they obviously like him, and this coaching staff, like, you don't always see all the cards. They're pretty good at having some guys that they're in on who maybe aren't like obvious to the public eye, but at least like if we're going off of like what I know, the recruiting board at running back after Justin Williams is sort of like, I'm not really sure. So he would be a guy who I would think is an interesting one just because he seems like a plan A guy. And I don't really know what plan B looks like. That doesn't mean that they don't have one or that they don't have a good plan B or another approach that they're really comfortable taking. I just don't know what it is, which makes Justin Williams sort of interesting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that board looks like Justin Williams at number 1, and then at number 2 it says C number 1. So
Justin Williams.
Right. Let's see how LJ Richardson does when he works out.
Right, and it's like you said, it's not like there aren't other potential options here, but it is kind of interesting that we just have not really heard about other running backs, and the ones that they have offered, it doesn't seem like Nebraska put forth a ton of interest in them once they kind of locked in on Justin Williams and a couple other guys that ultimately passed on him. So you hit on some of the offensive players. What do you make of the 2 defensive linemen coming in? Nico Davalier out of Arkansas, and then Jalen Marshall from St. Thomas Aquinas in nearby Kansas City, Kansas.
Yeah, I think they're both really interesting. I mean, they both have the sort of the frame that Nebraska really likes. They're maybe not like, and I don't know this for sure, maybe not quite like Ty Robinson in high school size, but they're both big kids, and they both have the sort of length that Nebraska covets. The thing that's interesting is, they've really struggled to get a lot of traction in the Kansas City region. And so that with Jalen Marshall, that's one factor in that. And then obviously, they offered him quite a while ago and they've been in on for a long time. Davalier's an interesting one because, you would think from where he's from, that Arkansas will be in the picture, and maybe they'll be tough to beat, in state. But for guys that have, been on Nebraska's radar for a long time, and I'm blanking, just off the top of my head here, but was at least one of those guys in town for the spring game or at some point?
Jalen Marshall was.
Yeah, Marshall. So to get him back for a second time and to have Nico Davalier back this early in June, I think that portends good things for Nebraska. And they've got they've got a budding development track record under Tony Tuioti and Mike Dawson and Eric Shenander to pitch to these kids now. And that's one of the positions where, it wouldn't be a big shock to see them sort of build some momentum at that spot as they can continue to say, hey, look at how well guys in this system are playing after a couple of years in it.
So Nebraska has made a couple really kind of interesting in-state offers over the last couple of days. Obviously, one a 2022 in Jake Applegate, and then a 2024 in Daniel Kalen, the quarterback out of Bellevue West. You, I believe, talked with both of them. We'll start with Applegate. What did you make of Nebraska scheduling this visit on the first day and then making sure they got that offer in before it looks like a little bit of a visit schedule for Jake Applegate?
Yeah, I think it backed up. To me, it affirmed what Nebraska had been telling Jake Applegate for several months, which is that they thought he was an offer-worthy player. They just wanted to see it with their own eyes. And that's part of the reason why they wanted him in there on the first day, was because they I'm guessing, they sort of expected him to do what he did. And they had the first crack at seeing him and making sure they offered him, before he went to Minnesota, where he's participating in a camp today, or to Lindenwood on Friday, or to Kansas State and maybe Northwestern next week. So that, to me, that's definitely part of the thinking there. But it also is very interesting to me. It's just hard not to be impressed with Jake Applegate himself in the way that he walked in there. He told me last night, he was like, yeah, I walked onto the field and there's 5 coaches and a film crew. And, he knows, there's a scholarship on the line this morning. And that's, it's hard to simulate that sort of pressure when you're doing drills with Chris Slatt, or when you're working out on the field at Southeastern in the weight room. That's a pressure-packed environment. Mm-hmm. And he obviously handled that really well and came out of it with an offer.
Do you anticipate, he was the first one of these, Nebraska's going to have a bunch of guys on Friday that they're going to be working out and seeing what they have there. And then, of course, they have Friday Night Lights as well. Do you anticipate that if we set a number, so counting Applegate, if you set a number at 3.5, would you take the over-under on Nebraska offers coming out of camp alone or workouts alone in the month of June?
Oh, man. That's a great question. That's a tough one. I feel like it's interesting to me because the Applegate walking in there as number one, the first guy to do it, and coming out with an offer, I don't want to overreact to that in the sense of anyone who goes in there for a workout might come out with an offer. I don't think that's going to be the way it goes, but it's obviously, I do think that there will be other people that put a really good foot forward and maybe, put themselves in the position to get one or get one right away. So I'll take the under slightly. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple more. And maybe it's guys that we've sort of talked about in this conversation already, whether it's Henry Rickles from Bellevue West, or, one of the other Bellevue West kids that, Huffman, Michael Huffman, the coach there, told me on Monday night, I think. And then I was listening to the recruiting hour yesterday, and much the same, the
Caden Camise,
the guy who they've really liked, who Tony Tuioti likes, the defensive lineman there. So between those guys and Vince Gentone in North Platte, you've got some out of state guys like Carson Hagerly, You've got Chris Brooks Jr., obviously sort of a familiar name for a lot of Nebraska fans. They have enough volume that I do think some guys somewhere along the way will earn a scholarship offer. But I also don't think it's going to be as easy as Jake Applegate made it look on day one.
Well, we appreciate that you listen to the Recruiting Hour. People need to be more like
it's a great
Parker
show.
Gabriel.
People forget that.
I wanted to see. I was like, man, I want to check out this. I wanted to check out this live stream on the video foray, and it was 2:30 or something, and I was like, oh man, that's great. I'm gonna catch a little Recruiting Hour, check out the video stream, and then I was able to converse with Happer on the drive about it yesterday.
There you go.
That's right.
Look at that.
Forgot about that.
21st century is here.
That's right. That's right.
He put those shades on, Parker, and he's just in a different element right now.
I'm pretty cool.
He's very relaxed.
It's kind of like when, how sometimes like extremely like very famous people will put shades on just to sort of like for a bit of anonymity. That's like Happer just adjusting to the new world of being on camera all the time. He's like got to sort of shield his, he's just got to sort of shield himself from the spotlight of the world.
Yeah, I know. People keep trying to take my my sunshine away. I won't let them. Got to wear shades.
Yeah, you won't let him.
Because the future is so bright. Is that essentially what?
That's exactly right.
All right. Well, there you go. All right. We appreciate
like driving.
We appreciate your time as always, Parker. We will, I'm sure, have you on again this month, and we will enjoy it when we do.
Right on. Sounds good. We'll see you guys on Friday.
All right. That was
We're
Parker
going
Gabriel.
on Friday.
Well, if you are going to Friday Night Lights, which is now available to the public,
I'm going to Arkansas.
Happer's going to a regional.
Yep.
All right. So we are going to take a break. When we come back, we will finish up the show next.
You're listening to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Don't you feel so free out here on the lake?
Not as free as this soda.
Where'd you get free soda?
Casey's. Buy 4 fountain drinks, 5th one's free.
I love free.
Bought this jerky, got this free donut too. And these chips could win me a free Lee Brice concert here in our town.
With Casey's Summer of Freedom sweepstakes, the more you buy, the more you can win, including a free Lee Brice concert for your town. Casey's, here for good. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. For official rules, visit Casey's.com.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Brought to you by Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing.
Expect partly to mostly sunny skies and beautiful conditions here for our Wednesday. We'll top out near 80 with a light south wind at 10. Mainly clear tonight, a low dropping down to around 56. Getting a little warm for our Thursday with a high of around 86. By Friday, we could be approaching 90. That's a check of your forecast. I'm meteorologist Tim Wright for 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Summertime is here and the temperature is rising. Beat the heat at the Pawnee Plunge Water Park in Columbus all summer long. Pawnee Plunge features a full day of fun for the whole family, including the flow ride, the only one in Nebraska, a large swimming pool, diving boards, a lazy river, climbing wall, and of course, massive water slides. It's a great place for parties or a great spot to lounge around all day long. Book your party by calling 402-562-4269. Come splash and play the Pawnee Plunge Ride in Columbus from May 31st through August 8th.
Water heater gone? Call Bryant. The price you're quoted is the price you'll pay. And in most cases, same-day replacement. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing. 467-1111. We do whatever it takes.
Welcome to Friendly Neighbors. Welcome to Maintenance-Free Living. Welcome to Carriage Glen. Welcome home. It's everything you'd want in an active 55-plus rental community right here in Lincoln. Spacious floor plans, numerous amenities, beautiful surroundings near Holmes Lake, and much more. Plus, with Carriage Glen's current move-in special, you can save thousands if you act now. Carriage Glen invites you to take a personal tour or visit them online at carriageglenoflincoln.com. Discover the place you'll love to call home.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Koppel Chevrolet GMC, and we have transports rolling in with fresh new inventory, but our leftovers must go. So right now at Koppel, get a brand new Chevrolet Trax starting for $16,966. That's over 30% off list price. That is not a mistake. A new Chevrolet Trax for $16,966 or 30% off MSRP. You must hurry now. These will not last. Visit KoppelCars.com or make that drive right down 144th Street, stock number C288423.
At Gain the Truck Trucking, you can make a better income, a better career, and a better life. Dana Trucking and Excavating is now hiring Class A and B CDL drivers. Careers include amazing benefits with a 401k, healthcare, paid vacations, annual raises, and so much more. 40-hour work weeks guaranteed year-round. To be a part of this amazing career opportunity, apply online at GainaTrucking.com. Don't miss our team culture, benefits, and a career that will give you a better life. Be better at Gaina Trucking and Excavating.
Mike Schaefer here with 5-star childcare provider Lee Beecher from Bubbles and Blocks. Let's start with what makes Bubbles and Blocks special.
We have 3 beautiful locations in Lincoln that provide the safety, security, and reliability you need while also bringing a family feel to each classroom at every location.
I also hear some congratulations are in order.
Thank you. Yes, we just won the Lincoln Choice Award for Best Daycare and Preschool for the 3rd year in a row.
What should people do if they want to join the Bubbles and Blocks family?
Call to set up a tour to enroll your child today, or you can visit bubblesandblocks.com to apply to join our team.
Back to the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer. Presented by Bubbles and Blocks. On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Hour. One final time here on a Wednesday. Big thank you to Parker Gabriel jumping on the show here, talking a little about Nebraska's visit weekend that is coming up. Before we get to that visit weekend, we will find out where MJ Morris, the quarterback out of Pace Academy in Atlanta, is going. He has set an announcement for tomorrow, I believe, if I have that.
That's
correct.
right.
And, you know, we've talked about this. We've talked about MJ Morris a lot this spring because Nebraska popped up as a team that could potentially walk away with his commitment. He really likes Scott Frost. He came out for the red-white game. And it just never felt like Nebraska went all in on him. And we've seen him go all in on other quarterback targets in the past. And it never had that feeling with MJ Morris. He is committing tomorrow. And it is Georgia Tech, NC State, Nebraska. Right now, I believe the crystal ball, once Steve Wiltfong put it in, there's been a rush of people jumping on NC State with that. So he will be committing to the Dave Duren, Tim Beck era of NC State football.
He'll be the next.
That would be the prediction, I guess, as it is right now, which means he's passing up his in-town school with Georgia Tech and, of course, Nebraska as well.
Yeah. He could be the next Russell Wilson. Do you think they're still selling Russell Wilson down there?
Do they get
Phillip
to sell
Rivers?
Russell Wilson, or does Wisconsin have exclusive rights?
I've seen recruiting graphics for NC State with Russell Wilson.
Well, a lot of the NC State stuff is like, look at how many quarterbacks at least started their career at NC State.
Mike Glennon.
Well, I think Kirk Cousins was at NC State before he transferred to Michigan State.
Oh, I did not know that
I
at
think
all.
Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson were teammates at one point.
What?
I will factually.
This sounds like something that would have been mentioned on an NFL broadcast 48 times that I just missed. That I would know if I was a Vikings fan.
All right, so let's see. I swear I saw this, but I don't know. It's probably just something I completely missed or made up in my brain. But I don't know. I swear I thought I saw this at some point in time. That they
college career, Kirk Cousins, 4 years at Michigan State. I don't feel
know.
like that's right.
Maybe he was committed there or something. I don't know what it is. But
maybe you're thinking of Kirk Cousins and Brian Hoyer.
No, I'm definitely not thinking of Brian Hoyer. I don't know that I've ever thought of Brian Hoyer.
Come on, you should think about Brian Hoyer more.
He doesn't really have a lot that I need to think about.
Michigan State had a nice run at quarterback. You know what? Michigan State and NC State are like just like competitive eaters and street basketball players, NC State and Michigan State occupy the same space in my brain. It's kind of the same. Like they've had a bunch of like really notable players and some good seasons, but really have never really amounted to anything.
Interesting.
Maybe that's unfair to Michigan State.
It could be. It could be. I've come across the story now that Nick Foles and Kirk Cousins had a quarterback battle at Michigan State to be a
Nick
backup.
Foles. Okay, that's what you were thinking of.
There's something with Russell Wilson. I don't know why, but I don't know. Whatever.
Harrison Beck.
They obviously cross paths in the fact that they played in that absolutely bonkers Michigan State Wisconsin regular season game, and then they met again in the conference championship.
Yes.
And maybe I somehow have convinced myself that meant that Kirk Cousins.
They were on the
spent
same team.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't be trusted. I think that's basically what it comes down to.
That's okay.
So
maybe you thought Kirk Cousins and Philip Rivers were the same person.
No, I've never thought that. They're decidedly different individuals.
Yeah.
Plus, I think Kirk Cousins only has one kid, whereas Philip Rivers has 1 times 8.
I think it's more than that.
Is it more than 8?
I think it's more than 8. Yeah.
The running joke is that he's
I actually
going
think
his entire
it's 10 or more.
You think it's 10? No, that can't be right.
How many kids does Philip Rivers have? 9.
Well, so we split the difference there.
1 times 9.
I think it'd be hard to come up with 9 different names.
Hallie, Caroline, Grace, Sarah, Rebecca, Claire, and their 9th child, Anna.
A lot of girls.
2 sons, Gunnar and Peter.
Is Gunnar going to be an NFL quarterback?
Gunnar Rivers needs to be an NFL quarterback.
Gunnar Rivers is a pretty good name.
I don't know how old Gunnar Rivers is, but he will at least get a tryout.
So there's Gunnar, and then it's like Peter. Poor Pete. You got your brother named Gunnar.
I know Gunnar. Like that guy, that kid's the chosen child.
Yeah, that's.
If there's ever a quarterback in the family, it's not Pete.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine Pete Rivers being better than Gunnar Rivers at quarterback.
There's no chance.
So we'll keep an eye on that for 2034.
That's the same reason I don't believe in Arch Manning.
Arch Manning is a thing.
I don't want it to be.
It's 100% a thing from Isidore Newman down there in New Orleans. So
I don't like it.
It could end up at Ole Miss.
It's not
could end up
time
at
yet.
LSU. Let's finish with this. Mike Krzyzewski stepping away from Duke. There was a quote in there that it had to do with like NLI and transfer portal stuff, and it cracks me up. Good riddance.
Yeah, go ahead.
Continue to talk more about how the younger generation is incapable of handling things while you just run and hide.
I will say shout out to Coach K for just continuing to dye his hair jet black every day for he's like 100 years old.
He's not quite 100, but he's closer than we are. All right, see you later.
If you live in an older home, your little one might be at risk of being exposed to lead. Lead is toxic metal, and lead-based paint is still found in many older homes across Nebraska. Lead poisoning can impact a child's growth and development for their entire lifetime. Talk to your child's doctor about lead testing. A simple blood test can detect lead poisoning in your child. Get the facts about